Hello, and welcome to Final IT. In today's video, we're going to be testing to see if you are vulnerable to the new MDS attacks that were discovered recently. These exploits are related to a series of other exploits that target CPUs, specific tricks they use to increase performance. With a greater focus on security in recent times, we've come to find that some of these methods aren't as secure as they should be. MDS is a vulnerability that only applies to Intel CPUs, but it covers most CPUs made by Intel in the past 10 years or so. Specifically, this is, things like consumer laptops, or if you have a desktop that you didn't put together yourself recently, then it's likely that you have some exposure to this issue. We're going to go through the steps needed in order to check if you are protected, and to go through some options if you find that you aren't protected. Microsoft has a script that is available to run to check your exposure for a few of these CPU vulnerabilities. To do so, you're going to need to open up an admin PowerShell session and run a few commands. So we can open that up by right-clicking in the bottom left corner and go into Windows PowerShell admin. Now with our PowerShell session, we're going to make our first command the $EP equals get execution policy. What that's going to do is it's going to save our current execution policy to a variable so that we can restore it later. Then our next command, it's going to be set-execution policy space remote signed space dash scope space current user. That's going to change our execution policy to allow for remote signed packages. We're going to hit yes to the prompt that follows. We're then going to install the speculation control module that'll check for this. So the next command is install -module space speculation control. And all of these commands will be available in the description as well. We'll want to hit yes at the prompt there as well. And we'll run this next command to get the actual results. Oh, there's another prompt first. It's the letting you know it's an untrusted repository. Specifically, that just means that this is not one of the default repositories available to Windows, but it is still a Microsoft tool, so this one is indeed safe. Then we can run our let's see, get speculation control settings. And that's going to give us all our data back on the issue, but before we actually decipher any of that, we're going to want to run our last command, which is set-execution policy space $EP space dash scope space current user. We'll want to hit yes to the prompt there, and that's going to change our system access back to the way it was when we started this. Now our system's back to the way it was. Let's go ahead and dive into these results. So the last three lines here are the most important ones for us, the ones that are marked MDS. The first one indicates whether or not your Windows operating system has the update that allows it to enable mitigations against the issue. The second one designates whether or not your CPU is actually vulnerable to the problem. And then the third actually designates whether or not the mitigation has been enabled for your system. And you'll find that in our case we're false on that one, and that's actually a good point to make here. At the time of this video's released, there are not the BIOS updates that are also necessary available yet. Now this is because there's a microcode patch that needs to be applied to the Intel processor to mitigate this issue. For these BIOS patches, you're going to need to look to the manufacturer of your computer, or for your motherboard specifically if you've custom built yours. Now in our case, this is a Dell machine, And Dell's actually listed a website where they go over the expected release time frames for the BIOS patches for this issue. We'll have a link to that page in the description. But since this is a Dell machine, we're going to have to wait until that's actually released before we'll be able to apply that fix. For these other two, if you find that the second one here, the hardware vulnerable, if that's true, that just means that you do indeed have the Intel processor that's susceptible to this. So you'll want to look for a solution, either now or when it becomes available. Then if the first one's false, then that means that your computer doesn't have the update for Windows yet for this mitigation. So in that case, you're going to want to make sure you've updated your Windows all the way, either using the built-in update tool, or if that's giving you problems, you can always download the ISO and run that as a setup to install the new updates directly. For information on how that's done, you can try our installing Windows 10 video. Another important thing is for how you're going to be getting these BIOS updates. Like I said, Dell has a website for it. Microsoft is going to embed it into their Windows Update for their Surface products. That's going to be another way to get it. And then for your custom PCs, you're going to need to be looking at your motherboard manufacturer's website because they'll be giving information on when those kind of mitigations will be available for you. So I hope this video has given you, if not peace of mind, at least some answers for when you can expect a fix. That's all for today's video. Like, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think.